Hey, what's up guys, it's Apollo Uchiha here back with another part of What If Naruto Was the 5th Hokage. And yeah, if you haven't guys, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content of this channel, and today is going to be a double upload. Hopefully a new series, so stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's continue our story. You look nervous, please take a seat, Naruto said kindly yet with a smirk, as looked around his office. Her eyes landed on the wooden chair that was, for lack of better words, molded with the wooden floorboards. Naruto, is that? Did you can use it? Ino said as she just stared at the chair as Naruto was nodding. Yes, now can you have a seat, please, Ino? Naruto said as he sat behind his desk and gestured to the wooden chair. Ino sat down in the chair as if it was fragile glass, which caused Naruto to quirk an eyebrow at the reaction. Ino, that chair isn't going to break anytime soon. Kakashi Sensei sat in it just a moment ago, so please make yourself comfortable. Naruto said as he leaned back in his chair. Ino sighed as she just did that. She had to admit that the chair was quite comfy, warm and soft, despite it only being made of solid wood. She wondered if it was the wood or Naruto's doing that made her want to stay in the chair forever. Right. So now that you're here and relaxed, what is it you wanted to see me about? Naruto said as he turned slightly to the right in his chair. Oh, how he had grown to love his chair. It had wheels and the seat could spin. So he had spent a bit of time on his first day simply enjoying these features, while his elderly advisors shook their heads at his childness. Nothing much, except to point out that the fact that you're sexy, Ino said with a grin as Naruto groaned. It's happening again, Ino. Please. Naruto groaned out as she grinned wider at him and his exhausted expression. But Mama knows sexy, and you know, my sexy men are the very definition of the word, Ino said as she got out of her chair and leaned across his desk seductively. Thanks, Ino, but I think we need to talk about that, Naruto said as she bowed. Talk about what, sexy kunt? Ino said innocently as she reached across the desk and played with his golden hair that had been sticking out from under his Kage head. That's that mama thing too. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Naruto said as he gently batted her hand away. I don't know what you're talking about, Ino said as she bit her lip with a worried expression while she turned her back to him. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he got up from his chair and got in front of her face, gazing deeply into her eyes. Ino almost flinched back at the emotions that were plainly visible in them. Yes, you do. What happened to that Ino that wouldn't speak in my direction unless Sasuke was present? What happened to the Ino that would fawn over Sasuke like some star-crazed groupie? What happened to that Ino that wouldn't even look my way? Naruto demanded as she looked away from his eyes with tears welling up in her own. Naruto gazed down and didn't waver a bit as she dropped to her knees and began to cry. He had long since learned how to keep a poker face. He wanted nothing more than to console her since it was his fault she was crying. Wait, no, it wasn't his fault because all he did was push what she was already feeling. She needed this, and he would be the one to see it through, that she get it all out. She died, okay? I hated that side of me. I gave him everything. I would have been there for him in a split second. But what did I get in return? Nothing. He wouldn't even look at me or the other girls without it being a bored stare or annoying glare. We all wanted to be Miss Sasuke Uchiha, and we understood that if he got more than one wives, we have to share him. But he was never interested in any of us. We all blindly follow him, and nothing got out of it. Ino screamed as she sobbed out through her tears as Naruto stood over her with his arms crossed. Then when the Genin exams came, we did our best to prove to him that we were worthy of his attention. Did you know that I had the best overall grades in the academy? For the girls, I had the highest grade in ninjutsu and assertiveness, and the second highest grade in taijutsu, genjutsu, cooperation, and class attitude. Also, Sasuke had the highest grade in ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. For the boys, he had the lowest grade in cooperation and the second lowest grade in assertiveness, next to yours, bringing down his average. When I found out I purposely let my grades drop so I would he would have the highest average. Though that meant I had to drop below Sakura. Ino said sadly as she wiped away her tears while Naruto had only quirked a brow at confusion. He had wondered why Sakura had been the top Konoichi when Ino had held it for so long. After the exam, I was placed with Shikamaru, Choji, and on Asuma Sensei's team. I was mad and jealous for a while, but Asuma Sensei pulled me to the side one day and said that I could always make Sasuke mine later on. I was happy that he encouraged me, and as our team bonded, went on missions, and spent time together, my focus slowly drifted from Sasuke to being a better Konoichi. It wasn't until the Chunin exams that I started actually thinking about him again, and even then it wasn't that much. When Sakura and I fought, I knew she'd be doing it over Sasuke, so I even thought I mean it. Did it as well half-heartedly. Even though Sasuke wasn't there, I knew that he had been. He would have looked at us like two crazy straight from the clinic. When the finals came around and I and Sakura watched you be the underdog the entire battle, but even though only a few of us, mainly Shikamaru and Hinata, had believed in you, you still never gave up and kept fighting the good fight until you pulled out on top. If it was like watching one of those cheesy movies about the kid who beat all the odds even when they're stacked so high against him. Ino said with a slight laugh at the end as Naruto ground and shook his head. His life wasn't like that, right? He didn't get much though on it as Ino pressed on, but even though it was like that, seeing it happen for real made me smile and my heart light up. It made me think of you in a whole new way, and even though I never gave you much thought to begin with, I found myself wanting to get to know you, the real you, instead of the bad comments and acts you put on. I talked to Shikamaru during Sasuke's fight, and he had so many great things to say about you. He even said that he'd follow your lead until the very end, and I was a little shocked that the lazy moron had so much belief in you and your way that it had actually moved him too. Well, move. Then the invasion started, and after the invasion, Shikamaru and I talked more. Though this time Shino had joined us with Choji and Kiba as well. They all had such good things to say about you. Also a few bad, said as Naruto listened while he nodded his head a few times. She was getting it all out. But did she have to be such a motor mouth? He knew he had heard that word somewhere, but where? Shikamaru said that you were the most determined person he had ever seen. In his own words, Shika calls you a troublesome blonde who makes me feel ashamed for being a coward when it comes to giving up. Shika, Shino, Choji, and even Kiba have a lot of respect for you. So I think that was when I began to have feelings for you, she said as she finally stopped gazing at the floor and looked up at Naruto, who is in shock, dropped his arm and gasped. She really had feelings for him. But what kind was the real question? They all made me believe in you with each word they said. I felt like I had really known you for years, that the way they went on about you. They had so many stories to tell about you guys and your days in the academy, and I found myself wanting to hear all of them. It was like I was seeing you in a whole new light instead of the constant annoyance that we girls saw you as once. I got to see the side of you that was the lovable goofball, she said as she began to tear up again. But Naruto noticed that these tears were accompanied with a smile. When he left, Kiba saw you and told us. I had tried to think of other things, but you kept coming to mind. Then Sakura started talking about you, and something inside me cracked. I got mad, and that was when I realized I had those feelings for you. I knew I couldn't act on them though because Hinata had been after you for so long now that I had have been buried under the guilt of taking you from her. Said as Naruto chuckled a bit and snorted, like she was that damn good a catch that he would just be with her. She heard him snort and slapped his knee as she glared up at him. I'm trying to be emotional here, damn it. Can you please? Said in irritation as Naruto sighed and rolled his eyes, but nodded all the same. Got back into her character as she exhaled a tear in the corner of her eyes while Naruto raised an eyebrow at the scene before him. Resolved to talk to Hinata over the idea of you seeing if you could be with both of us, or at least the giving both of us a chance to win you over. When I realized after finally talking to her, she said her father told her that you had two clans to rebuild. And I was so happy at that, and that you need multiple wives. And then I saw my chance after hearing that. She also scared the crap out of me, but I don't even want to think about that right now, to be honest. Ino said as she shuddered and laughed a hollow laugh. Naruto was almost afraid to ask about it, but still decided against it. Actually, I only really have one clan to revive, the Uzumaki. I want to keep the Namikaze around as well, but the Uzumaki was an actual clan, while the Namikazes were more of an over average sized family. It was a clan, but not a big one or even a really notable one. The only two people who had made names for themselves in the world were my ancestor, Lilish Namikaze, and my father, Minato Namikaze. Naruto said as Ino shrugged uncaringly as she went back to looking at the floor with a sorrowful gaze. Anyways, I was really excited that you'd be able to love both me and Hinata, but Hinata said we needed to find more people since apparently her little sister and we two weren't enough. After we found Tenten and I found Mogi, I think that's her name, I put serious thought into it. I didn't realize it before, but being able to actually have a shot at being with a person I have strong feelings for was more frightening than I ever thought. I thought long and hard about it all, and I almost backed out, but a talk with my dad made me feel better about it. He said that I shouldn't be a fangirl to you and that I should ease into things, but I don't know how. Ino said as tears silently rolled down her cheeks. Naruto knelt down beside her, had offered her a pocket tissue as she nodded and while accepting it. Can you please stop with the crying already? I hate when girls cry, especially over me. It's like a weakness or something. Naruto said deadpan as Ino glared at him through her tears. What's wrong with you? I'm a girl, and therefore I retain the right to be as emotional as I want. Besides, where did the attitude come from? I liked your older, cheerful, and childish self better. Ino said as she crossed her arms while still on the floor as Naruto stood to full height. It came with the boost in intellect. I suppose Sensei said that I would have turned out like this if I hadn't been isolated. Naruto said as he then grinned when she looked up at him. But that doesn't mean I've changed completely. I'm still me, just smarter and calmer. Believe it. He finished as she rolled her crying eyes. You really could stand to lose that, remarked as he hung his head. He sighed as she went back to her performance, and he was seriously considering having her teach theater or children in the academy. Like I was saying, I don't know how to be me. I don't know who I am. I'm not meek yet courageous like Hinata, or strong-willed yet gentle like Tenten. Hell, I'm not even smarter and festy like Sakura. I don't know who I am in this world. I just want someone to be there for me, tell me and remind me of who it is that stares at me when look in the mirror. I'm so damn confused, shouted as she cried with Naruto staring at her blankly. After a few minutes of her sobbing, Naruto said the one thing that was sure to get him killed. You're a loud ass motor mouth. That's one thing, he said blankly as she turned to him with a look between shock, hurt, and anger. You're kinda like what I heard about my mom, and I like that. You may not have watched me, but I did watch you and the others in the academy back then. You're confident, kind, outspoken, and not afraid to speak your mind at all. You're also bossy, rude, and a little weird, like with that mama stuff you're talking about lately. Naruto said as she blushed and laughed nervously. But you're Ino, and you're one of a kind in your own way. I wouldn't change you for anything in this world. My mom was said to be a lot like me, but from what I've heard about her, I'd say you two were more alike than us. You're both talkative and quick to anger, but both of you have kind hearts and love the people around you unconditionally. Naruto said with a softer face as he knelt down next to Inu once more. Inu, I'm not perfect. Hell, anyone who knows me can write an entire scroll on my faults. But that doesn't mean I give up trying to better myself. I don't know who I'm supposed to be either, but that doesn't mean I try to be everything that I'm not. Who knows? Maybe you do have a personality like a fangirl, but that doesn't make you one. Am I correct? I think I know. No, I know you find yourself, but As for now, why don't we get to know each other more before we tie any knots or light any candles? Nada said softly as she looked up at him. Before he could react, she was crying into his robes while hugging him with all her might. He didn't really know what to do, so he settled for stroking her hair gently and occasionally giving her some more reassuring words. After a few minutes of the scene, Ino had stopped crying and said she'll be alright. Nada didn't look too convinced as she was sniffing with her eyes being red and puffy. I'm fine. Everything is fine. I promise. Ino said as Naruto looked confused. But it didn't do anything, he said as she sighed and shook her head. You just don't know what you do to people, Naruto. You're a better guy than you'll ever know, she said softly as he sat behind his desk. You say something? He asked as he was sure she had muttered something to herself, but he wasn't paying attention to it anymore. No, nothing. I'll get out of your hair now. See you later, Naruto-kun, Ino said as she bowed and walked towards the door. Naruto snapped his fingers as an anbu dropped from the ceiling. Please take Ino to her home, please. She had an emotional day, you can say, and I think it's best that she gets home without a hassle, Naruto said as the anbu bowed and grabbed Ino's shoulder. See you later, Ino-chan, Naruto said as she smiled. The anbu took her away via a swirl of leaves as Naruto leaned back and sighed. Today was becoming a long ass day, but it wasn't even noon yet. Oh well, the work of Hokage is never done. Outside Konoha, just barely 50 meters away from the village, were Sasori and Deidara. Sasori, inside his Yuriko puppet, had stopped as Deidara looked at him questioningly. Sasori, why have we stopped? The village is almost within sight, yeah, Deidara said as Sasori gazed up at something through the puppet. Deidara, use your scope to check out any defenses Konoha might have. Itachi didn't give us any information on it, so we may be walking into a trap here, Sasori said through Hiroko rough voice as Deidara moved his hairband out of the way to use his scope, and he gazed towards the village. Sasori saw his face go from shock to a large grin as he allowed his hair to fall back into place. Nice going, Sasori, my man. Had we kept walking, we would have walked right into a detection type barrier that would have alerted the village to our arrival. Yeah, it runs underground too, so I don't know how Itachi or Zetsu infiltrated the village. Though I must say, yeah, that this will be the trickiest of things for us to get past without them knowing. Yeah, Deidara said as Sasori hummed in thought. Zetsu becomes one with the ground as he moves around, so that wouldn't have sensed him. And Itachi is from this village, so he had to know some way to sneak himself and Kisame in. We use a more artistic approach at getting in, Sasori said as he continued to drag his puppet body towards the village. How so, Sasori, my man? That thing can probably sense animals to inanimate objects, Deidara said as Sasori didn't even turn back to talk to him. You better get to chewing clay, Deidara. We'll need your brand of art for this kind of spy mission, Sasori said as Deidara smiled, yet grinned as he tucked his hands into the bag on his belt. Oh yeah, Konoha wouldn't know what hit them. Temari was not having a day. In fact, neither was Gaara and Kankuro. Why, you may ask? Well, it had all started 5 minutes ago when Baki Teme walked into their house and sat them all down to talk to them about something. You may be asking why she said bastard instead of a teacher. Well, the way they had caused that as well. Link break. Flashback 5 minutes ago. A knock had come to their door. It wasn't one of those doctor knocks or even that of a friend, but it was familiar, so the Sand siblings looked at one another and all went to the door. It was Gaara who opened it, while Temari and Kankuro was a mere meter behind him, posed to see who it was. It was their sensei, Baki sensei. Hello, Gaara. Is Temari in? Baki asked as Gaara opened the door, fully to show his slightly confused sister standing next to their eyebrow quirked brother. Gaara stood to the side as Baki came in, walking straight up to Temari and looking to her brothers with a mixture of regret and pain. Listen, I need to tell all three of you something, but it pertains to you especially, Temari, since it affects you directly, Baki said as she looked at him with confused eyes. She could see that in his eyes were sorrow, as he was begging her with his eyes not to hit him in his lower regions with her fan. She wasn't sure why, but she shrugged it off and led the way to their living room. Now, Chamari, I need you to stay calm and open minded about what I'm about to tell you. This is for the safety and goodwill of the village, and we decided upon by the village council along while I personally protested against it. To tell you, the village needs and protection outweighs the both of us. What I'm trying to say is, Baki said in broken words. Conqueror rolled his eyes as Kara kept a blank face. Just get over with it, Baki sensei. Stop playing with the words. It's confusing, Conqueror said, as he wasn't getting anything. Well, you please just get on with it, Tamari asked as well impatiently while Baki swallowed a lump in his throat. It was a good thing he had bought the steel plate crouch protector before coming here. It made the fan to his family jewels hurt a whole lot worse. Link break. End of the flashback. Those bastards and bitches on the village council had told it to be pleasant to simply marry her off to the new Hokage of Konoha. She knew it was her duty as a shinobi to do whatever it was to ensure the village was safe, but why did it have to be like that? She couldn't believe it, and neither could Kankro and Gara. That was why they were all marching directly towards council chambers, with Gara disabling any ninjas that came within 2 meters of them. Surprised to say that Gara had become a lot more serene over the past 2 months, but that didn't mean he would still be so when pissed off. They had made it to the Kazekage mansion with the two Chonin guards getting ready to defeat them. That was until they were pulled into the sand beneath their feet by Gara. They were literally buried up to their necks in sand, which said only one thing: don't piss off the person who could use the entire village as a weapon. They stormed up to the council doors and burst through the doors, while the council gave them all wild and shocked looks. Though those looks turned into fear of all three Sand siblings once they looked at pissed Tamari's face. They tried to run to get away as fast as they could, or to at least stop Gara from killing them, but they quickly found that anything below their necks was encased in sands. What is the meaning of this? Release us at once, Gara! A council member cried out as Gara looked over him impassively while he tightened the sand around the man, making him cry out in agony. Anyone else wants to yell at me? Gara said in his monotone voice, as head shook in unison. That's what I thought. Why are you three here? A senior ninja that had been on the council since Tamari's birth asked. He knew that anything less direct would get them nowhere but oblivious fast. I came to inquire as to why I'm being used as a peace treaty between us and Konoha. Tamari exploded with fury that made even Gara step away from her. He may have been crazy once, but not that damn crazy to piss off Tamari. Now, Tamari-sama, we need to come up with a quick solution to our problem, and since the newest Hokage to the Leaf happens to be the last of his clans, we thought a powerful Konomichi such as yourself could do as well with being his betrothed. A civilian council member said slyly as she gazed up Tamari. Tamari's mind stopped being furious just long enough to think about who the Hokage could be. As far as she knew, the only last of their clans Konoha had was Sasuke Uchiha. But that was impossible. Sure, the kid was a genius by Ganin standards and had the Sharingan, but why would they made him the Hokage? The kid couldn't have possibly gone from barely fighting Gara to Kage level power in 2 months. Then there was the fact that he was chosen by Orochimaru. She'd have to think about it later. I don't care what the reason was. My question was basically because it doesn't matter what's the reason. You married me off to someone I don't know. I'm too pissed off right now to care about the damn reason. Tamari yelled as everyone pushed back. It was then an elderly councilwoman looked up at her. She had lived a full life, so it was what she was about to say got her killed. She could at least say she led a full life. Actually, Tamari-sama, you haven't been married to anyone just yet. The council still needs to meet with Konoha to see if all the terms are agreeable to both parties. You'll be allowed in and to have your say, just like your brothers will. But you must accept this as truth. You are, at least for now, a Konoichi of Suna. You will obey the council words and decisions until a new Kazekage is chosen, the elderly woman said as everyone fell silent. Tamari's mouth was agape at the woman, just basically telling her to suck it up and take one for them. Gar narrowed his eyes at her as he thought over what the woman had said. He'd be doing some serious thinking tonight. Kankuro looked furious as he understood there was absolutely nothing they could do until the meeting with Konoha. Perhaps he and the mainly Gaara could persuade the Hokage and his council not to marry Tamari to the Hokage. Tamari screamed in frustration as he stomped out of the room. Kankuro gave her a look but followed nonetheless. Gaara looked from his furious sister to the pale and slightly shaking members of the council. He released his handhold on them and bowed respectfully before leaving out and closing the doors. If he wanted to change things, then he needed to start now. The members of the council looked at each other and then at the eldest members, who had told Tamari about the meeting with Konoha. They all cheered for her, getting them not killed. It was a rare day indeed when Gaara or Tamari didn't kill someone who they were pissed at. Link were Konoha with Naruto. He had just finished his meetings with Guy, Korona, even Asma. The first he needed earplugs for, the second he found out was just a simple conversation about more pranks using genjutsu, and the third was more of a congratulations than an actual meeting. Though in each meeting they swore they'd follow him to the end, and that made him all worthwhile to him. Now he was unsharing. In the next of his meeting, Sakura, the girl, walked into his office as she were on death's list. He raised a brow to her behaviors, eyes staring intently at the ground, feet fidgeting while she sat, and her hands pressed into her lap. From his months of being around her, he had learned the signs of her nervousness, and this was at least a class 5 on the scale. Sakura, why you're so nervous? It's just me. There's no need to get so worked up over seeing me, is there? Not as sincerely as she finally looked at him. You didn't call her Sakura-chan. Oh, Kage-sama, I've... There's no need to call me that. We were on the same team before this, and such you should be able to address me as you did back then. Naruto said as she deeply exhaled. He could practically see the tension roll off her when he said that. Had she been worried that he'd be harsh to her? Did she think he'd be mean to her for some reason? Sure, she had been mean to her a lot of time, but that was all in the past now. He had learned lately that whatever happened in the past should stay in the past and they should just move on. After all, you can't change the past some way, so why worry about it? Just deal with the consequences when they come to you. Naruto, I've done terrible things to you, Sakura said slowly as Naruto raised a brow. Then he smirked as he thought of a way to get her to loosen up. He jumped up from his chair and leaned over his desk as his eyes went wide and his face filled with horror. Sakura, you destroyed all ramen. How could you? You're evil. Naruto exclaimed as Sakura looked up at him with surprise. What? That's not what I meant, Naruto, Sakura said as she watched him fall back in laughter. Geez, Sakura, you need to loosen up a lot. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Just relax, after all, you're friends with the Hokage, right? Naruto said with a smirk. Sakura's gaze returned to her lap upon the words friends. You think of me as your friend? She asked as he nodded. Of course. True, there were some bad times between us, but that's in the past, he replied as she gazed up at him with tears in her eyes. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I know it's a short one, but yeah, I have a kind of an emergency, so yeah. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. This is Apollo Uchiha and I'm signing out. Peace!